Kelly, thanks for being here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about a tough period that you had in your life and what happened to get you through that 7-year period, which seems like such a long time.
And it did seem like a long time for sure. In fact, it was 14 years ago now. It seems, wow, 14 years ago, that my husband and I desired to have another child, and it was always the plan to have more than one, and for some reason it just wasn't happening, and wasn't happening year after year after year. And truly, the 7-year period, the first half of it was one of the worst experiences that I've been through. It was a time of depression, a time of anger, a time of doubt, not understanding why God wasn't fulfilling something that was so important to me. And I just really struggled to even want to come to church. I remember I would sit in the back and couldn't wait until the service was over so I just could get out of here. And I stopped being on worship team. I didn't really read my Bible. I was angry. I treated people very differently during that time. I didn't want to be talked to. I didn't want to be involved with anything. And it was just really a hard, difficult part of my life that I couldn't understand why it was happening.
Now, was this something that took place even inside your home? Were you indifferent with your family?
Absolutely. In fact, my husband will tell you those years were probably really hard for him because of how I would treat him, just because I was just so hurt and so lost, really, in life, not knowing where do I go from here? How do I get through this? And I even remember we had a prophet come to the church and say to me, Kelly, I feel that there's a depressive state of mind that you're in, and that if you don't change, it's going to get worse. And I thought to him, oh, you're so wrong. It's not that bad. And it truly, truly was that bad for me.
And what happened in your life that kind of got your mindset turned around before the pregnancy thing?
Right. That's a really strange thing for me because it wasn't this big wow moment per se, but it was just these little things that kind of lined up to get me there. The first thing was I asked Troy if I could step down from working because it just, I knew I wasn't doing my job well. I was a teacher and I wasn't loving what I was doing. And I knew I needed to take a break from that. So that was like kind of the first step to get me away, because then what that time allowed was for me to dive into some books and get back into the Word, because I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything to do. So I started reading the Bible and started reading books. So that was probably the biggest step for me. And then the second thing for me was I went on a retreat with some women, and I can't say that there was this special person that spoke that was like, wow, that changed me. But it was just that whole weekend allowed for reflection and allowed me to say, I don't want to be the person that I've been these last 3.5 years. I don't want to be that Kelly anymore. I can't be that Kelly anymore. And I need to do something to change. So I'd say me stepping away from work and then that weekend really were the two things combined that really started to change something in me. I knew I needed to take a step to be someone different. And so it was those two things that really moved me into that.
And how long after that, because that was a total like spiritual and mental turnaround for you. So how long after that until you became pregnant with Parker?
Yeah, it'd be nice to say, okay, I had this turnaround. I got in the Word and I was having a great spiritual uplifting with God, that then I got pregnant. But that isn't the case. It still took another 3.5 years before it came. And I always say, even though those second 3.5 years were hard, because you're still in that waiting period, you're still wanting the baby, it was the best 3.5 years that I've ever had with the Lord. It was a time of strengthening. It was a time of growing. It was a time of leaning into Him and trusting Him like I've never trusted before. And so I actually wouldn't take back any of those years. Even though I still didn't have the baby, there was something in me that knew He promised it to me and it would come as I trusted Him. So it was still another 3.5 years, but it was the best 3.5 years.
So once you found out you were pregnant again, did you still keep on moving forward with the Lord, or was it like a situation where, okay, now I got what I wanted, I can kind of relax a little bit? And
yeah, that's really a really great piece of the story that I do want to share. When I found out I was pregnant, there was such rejoicing and celebration for that. 7 years of waiting had finally come to an end. And when I got pregnant, there was some complications of things that I went through. And so there was that fear that started to rise up in me and like, is this going to happen? Is this baby going to be healthy? And I really had to, again, trust on God through that time. And he brought me through all that. And it was an amazing time with him. And I remember even friends sending me scripture to help me and to build into me. And I really appreciated that. And the prayer that I had from my church family was felt for sure. But the thing that happened then, I have the baby, and something, I can't even quite describe what it was, but there was something that took my eyes off of God after I had Parker. There was, I don't know if I went through a depression again, like I don't know what it was, but it was this little by little that I was like, well, I'm not going to read the Bible today. And then that became 3 days, and then that became a week, a month, a year that I was not spending time in the Word. And here I had been given the most precious gift, the thing that I had longed for so long. And you would think, okay, Kelly, you got what you want. Now you're going to have this even better relationship with God. And it was a struggle, and I couldn't understand why, once I received the promise, why it was a struggle. And what I've learned is that, once you get the promise, once you get the prayer answered, you still, in the good times, have to get in the Word and be in prayer, or you're going to lose everything that you had with God for a time, unless you choose to go back into it. And for me, it was probably, I hate to say this, but it was probably 3 or 4 years before I was like, wow, I've gotten back into this pit again where I was 7, 8 years ago, because I've taken my eyes off of who my eyes need to be on. And there wasn't even, I love to sleep. People know I love to sleep. And I can't even say that Parker kept me up, and so I was so tired and I just didn't have the time. New babies can be very time consuming. God was so gracious that Parker was a good sleeper, and I had all the time in the world that I could have been spending with God, but I chose not to. And for me, it always comes back to, it's a choice. It's a choice that to spend time with him or not spend time with him, and that's going to lead you to one place.
I think too, like I've had the opportunity to see you in the past 7 years since Parker, and you've done a lot of great things around here with women. And actually, your women's ministry is fantastic. It's grown exponentially, actually. How are you able to implement these hard times that you went through and coming out of them with your women and your groups?
The biggest thing for me is that I know, didn't think I was going to get emotional, but I know that you have to spend time in the Word. Like, it has to be priority. And you have to be in constant communication with him. And that means not you just doing all the talking, but you sitting back and listening to what he wants to speak to your heart. Because if you don't do that, it's not all at once either. It doesn't go away all at once. It's just little by little. And you're like, wow, I need that again. And if you don't realize that you need it, you're going to be in a lot of hurt. And so I know that now. Regardless if times are good, bad, indifferent, I need God. I need him every day. Every day. And for my women's ministry, I've realized I need to show that realness of like, yeah, even when times are good, I need him. When times are bad, you need him. And I just really preach that in women's ministry, like, get in the Word. It doesn't matter how many Bible studies we have. It doesn't matter what we do here on Monday nights, Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings. If you're not in personal time with him, you're missing out on what he really wants to do for you. And so it's just become a priority in my life. And I try to make sure that my girls know it needs to be a priority. And that's why I think women's ministry is growing, is because the women have such a heart for more of him. And it's awesome to see, and I'm excited for it.
Well, I'm so glad that you came today, and I appreciate you being kind of raw about things. It was a tough time for you.
It was.
It was a very tough time.
But I wouldn't change it for anything.
No, and we have Parker today, who
Yeah.
I feel there's just a reason why that little fella has the heart that he has.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see him now grow
Right.
into something.
Right.
So thanks for being here.
Thanks.